My name is Luna Walker, 36 years old, a full-time librarian at a small public library in Tacoma, Washington. Every day I work 10-hour shifts on my feet from early morning until late evening, sorting hundreds of books, listening to dozens of life stories from people whose names I never learn. But no matter how exhausted I am, I still drive nearly half an hour to my mother's house, a place that hasn't felt like home in a long time, just an obligation by default. That beige two-story house legally belongs to my mother. But the person who has been paying the mortgage for the past 2 years is me. Not because they asked, but because without it, the bank would have taken the house after just 3 missed payments. I paid quietly, and kept paying. Electricity, water, internet, satellite TV subscription. Nearly $2,800 vanish from my account each month like it's expected. I used to think I did it out of love. But what kind of love is it when one side sacrifices in silence and the other side lives in comfort? Last Wednesday afternoon, I left the library at 6:30 p.m., my feet aching so badly I had to sit on a bench near the parking lot. It was raining, but I stayed there for a few minutes. Not because I was tired, because I didn't want to go back to my mother's house. I knew what would happen once I walked through that door: cook dinner for 7 people, fold clothes, clean up, and take care of Caleb, my 7-year-old nephew, while my younger sister Serena sat on her phone like the world owed her a vacation. I didn't say a word when I walked in, still in my navy blue work uniform, with book dust smudged on my sleeves. My mother Janice was lounging in the recliner, eyes glued to the TV, holding a glass of red wine. She didn't ask if I was hungry or tired. The only thing she said was Serena dropped off the boy. She went to see her boyfriend. Watch him for her, okay, like always. No, please, no thank you. I took off my shoes, hung up my coat, and went straight to the kitchen. The fridge was nearly empty. I pulled out a few frozen meals from the bag I'd brought, ones I picked up after work, because I knew if I didn't, they'd eat instant noodles and blame me for not preparing anything. Caleb was playing with toys in the living room. He's sweet and innocent. But I wasn't born to be a substitute mom for my sister. Serena got back around 8:30 p.m., her lipstick still perfectly intact. She didn't ask about her kid, didn't say a word about the food I made. She just glanced at me from head to toe and sneered that outfit looks like something from a charity bin. Which fits, I guess, since that's how you live. I gripped the spoon in my hand, not out of anger, just too drained to respond. My father Russell sat silently at the head of the table, buried in his newspaper, like the world was happening on another planet. He had never defended me, never said a word when Serena crossed the line or when my mother expected me to do everything. He simply ceased to exist whenever I needed someone to speak up. Last week I realized I had spent over $68,000 on this family in just 2 years. No one knew that number. They assumed the house stayed afloat by magic meals, appeared by miracle, utilities flowed without cost. And I was the silent shadow who carried it all on her back and kept walking. I used to think giving was a form of love. But when everything you give is treated as expected, that's no longer love, it's exploitation. That night, after Serena closed her door, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the flickering light above. And for the first time in years, I whispered in my mind, if I disappeared from here, would anyone even notice? I returned to my mother's house on a Friday afternoon, worn out from a long shift. I only meant to stop by briefly drop off a few bags of groceries I'd picked up, double-check the phone bill, and print out some insurance paperwork Mom had asked for. But the moment I opened the door, the air inside felt thick, heavy, unfamiliar. I stopped cold. Serena was lounging on the sofa, legs crossed, chewing gum while scrolling her phone. Across from her, my mother Janice sat with curlers in her hair, holding a gleaming martini glass. Neither of them greeted me. A few seconds later, Serena looked up. Oh, good, you're here. So you'll be watching Caleb next week, right? I frowned. Next week, my mom let out a yawn, speaking as if she were reading the weather report. Yeah, we're going to Maui for 7 days. Me, Serena, Tyler, and Caleb. The tickets are booked. I was going to tell you after dinner. I blinked. What about me? Serena rolled her eyes. Well, someone needs to stay behind. Watch the house, feed the cat, sort the mail and bills. Plus, Caleb won't handle the flight. You can just keep him here. I laughed, that kind of laugh that comes from sheer disbelief when something's too ridiculous to be mad about. So, you're saying I should stay behind, watch your kid, while all of you go on a Hawaiian vacation, and you didn't even ask me? Come on. It's not like you're busy. You're single. You live nearby. And you're good at this stuff. I slowly placed the grocery bags on the table. I do have plans. I made them months ago. What, another one of your forest journaling retreats, or whatever I booked a stay on Whidbey Island for my birthday weekend? I've had it planned since June. Serena jumped to her feet, her voice rising. Are you serious? You're that selfish after everything we've done for you? You're ditching your family for some lame birthday trip? My mom took a sip from her glass. Someone has to make the sacrifice, Luna. Life's not always about getting the easy part. That line, someone has to make the sacrifice, was the final cut, slicing clean through the last threads of my patience. I stepped toward Serena, standing tall, voice even. I'm not betraying anyone, but I refuse to be the default maid anymore. Serena narrowed her eyes. You owe Mom and me so much. I stared at her, stunned. Oh, what I've paid the mortgage, paid for your kid's school, covered the bills for 2 years, and not once has anyone said thank you. And you say I owe you then? Smack. Serena slapped me. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough to sting my cheek. The room went unnaturally quiet. My mother didn't say a word. She set her drink down and sighed like someone mildly annoyed at the dinner theater. Someone has to stay behind, she muttered. I looked at them, the woman who gave birth to me, and the girl who used to be my sister, and felt nothing left. Not because of the slap, but because of the coldness they didn't even try to hide. I didn't say another word. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and stared at the list of auto payments I'd been covering for years, and I knew tonight would be the last night they received any of it. I picked up my groceries and walked out of the house. No door slam. No heavy breath. No looking back. And inside there was no rage. Just one sentence repeating in my mind, it's time. I got back to my apartment around 8 p.m. The rain hadn't stopped yet, windshield streaked with water, and the streetlights flickered through each droplet like tiny cuts. I didn't turn on the lights as I stepped inside. I stood in the kitchen, still in my soaked coat, and quietly unlocked my phone. I didn't hesitate. No second thoughts. No pre-written plan. But the moment Serena's hand struck my face and my mother sighed like I was just a burden, everything inside me shifted permanently. I opened my Chase Bank app. Logged in. First line, auto payment, mortgage. Amount $1,950 per month. I tapped cancel auto pay. Confirmation? Are you sure? I tapped yes. Second line, T-Mobile family plan. 5 lines, 3 of which weren't mine. I called customer service and requested to split the account. The rep's voice was gentle. You want to cancel the entire plan? I said I want to end all financial obligations for people who are not my responsibility. Next line, Instacart grocery deliveries, my mother's address. Weekly. I canceled the subscription. Note, address changed. I logged into Netflix. Premium plan, $22.99. Linked to Serena's email. I changed the password and signed out of all devices. Disney Plus, Hulu, Amazon Prime. One by one, I shut them down. Spotify I kept, because it was the only account I actually used. I opened Venmo. The transaction history was long: $300 Serena Caleb's preschool, $85 Mom pharmacy, $120 Dad gas plus insurance. Not a single entry marked repayment. I typed one final note, effective immediately. Then, I turned off my phone, set it face down on the dining table. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of missing a single call. An hour later, when I stepped out of the shower, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree in mid-August. 7 missed calls from Mom. 4 from Serena. 2 from my father's number, which I hadn't even saved. Texts started flooding in. First from Mom Luna. What are you doing suddenly canceling payments? Call me back. I can't open Netflix. Was that you? Why are you acting like this? All because of a little slap? Then Serena, are you insane? You canceled the house payment? What's Mom supposed to do now? Caleb needs food, needs milk. Are you playing with a child's life? You're so selfish. Mom gave you everything, and this is how you repay her. I didn't respond. I just read in silence. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time, a voice recording from my father's number. His voice was raspy, short. Luna, I don't understand what's happening. But you're destroying this family. Stop before it goes too far. I wondered why it was always me who had to stop, when they never considered starting to act decently the next morning. I brewed a strong coffee, opened my laptop, and created a new Google Sheets doc. I named it FINANCESNONNEGOTIABLE. I began listing every payment made over the past 2 years. Mortgage $1,950. 24 months equals $46,800. Caleb's tuition $650. 12 months equals $7,800. Utilities average $350. 24 months equals $8,400. T-Mobile $210. 24 months equals $5,040. Groceries $150/week. 96 weeks equals $14,400. Miscellaneous costs over $10,000. Total $92,440. I stared at that number like it was a slap stretched across 2 years, slow burning but sharp. I wasn't asking for it back, but I wouldn't forget it either. When my screen lit up with another message from Serena, you want the whole world to know how awful you are, I just gave a quiet laugh. No, I didn't want the world to know. But maybe it was time I knew myself clearly. And so I typed a final message, sent to the family group chat. Just one sentence: from now on, I will no longer be the one you can count on to exploit. I hit send, muted the chat, and played an old jazz playlist loud enough to remind me I was alive again. That night, I sat alone by the window, the streetlight casting long shadows on the faded wooden floor. On the table, my laptop remained open, the spreadsheet still on screen. The final number after reviewing every transaction, $93,280. Enough to change my life. But I'd used it to keep a household running, a household that never had space for me. I scrolled through each line, each note, every temporary payment that stretched over 2 years. No one asked if I could afford it. They simply assumed I'd always be there because I used to be afraid to say no. Quietly, I stood up and walked toward the old wooden cabinet next to the bookshelf, the place where I kept things that no longer had space in my heart. Inside was a small mahogany box with tarnished brass trim. It belonged to my grandmother Lucille. After she passed, I kept it, though I'd never opened it. Tonight I did. Inside was a folded handkerchief, a string of old prayer beads, and a leather-bound notebook, soft and worn at the corners. I picked it up and caught the scent of aged paper and faint lavender, the smell of summer afternoons in her garden, when I was little, sitting beside her on the creaky porch, listening to her stories told in that calm, deep voice. I opened the first page. Neat, slanted handwriting, hers. April 3rd, 1968. Today, my mother-in-law told me to stay quiet during dinner because women shouldn't interrupt when men are having serious discussions. I smiled, then picked up each plate and cleared the table. In my mind, I began writing the things they never let me say. I turned the page. September 17th, 1972. I work full-time, raise 4 kids, do the laundry, cook, and still get called useless because I forgot to buy orange juice. But I know I'm not invisible. I just live in a world that chooses not to see me. I had no idea she used to write. No one ever mentioned it. In my family's memory, Grandma Lucille was simply a gentle woman devoted to family, never one to raise her voice. But in this notebook, she wasn't silent. She was screaming in ink with unwavering, sharp sentences that pierced the page. I read in silence for over an hour. Each line was a cut through time, exposing buried family truths beneath the polished surface of tradition. One entry read, "My daughter, the mother of my grandchild, is repeating everything I once endured. But this time, I don't know how to stop it. I hope that someday the one child who looks at me with understanding will read this." I froze. The final line, written in shakier, bolder script, as if traced over and over, "If you're reading this, it means you've broken the chain." I held the notebook, tightly, breath caught in my throat. She saw it. She knew. And she had placed her final hope in me. The next morning, I wrapped the notebook in her handkerchief and gently placed it in my nightstand drawer, not to hide, but to keep. Like a vow never to return to silent burden carrying again. I poured tea into a white porcelain cup I bought for myself last month. Not my mom's. Not the old family set. For the first time in years, I drank from something that belonged only to me. It felt unfamiliar, but right. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and began to type. Not to complain, but to record with clarity. So no one could twist the truth about me anymore. No one gets to write my story for gratitude, for duty, or for family. I wasn't writing to get revenge. I was writing to come back to life as my real self. And somewhere out there, I knew my grandmother was nodding. No words needed. Just being seen was enough. That Sunday morning, I was folding a blanket on the sofa when there was a knock at the door. 3 quick, firm knocks. No heads up. No text. No asking. I peeked through the peephole and my heart sank, not from emotion, but from a very old kind of exhaustion. Serena stood there holding Caleb's hand. No flowers. No apology. Just that familiar face carrying a quiet kind of entitlement. "I'm here because I think I can be." I cracked the door open. "Luna! Caleb misses you. We're just stopping by," she said, her voice light as air. Caleb had already run into my arms before I could react. He was still warm, still smelled like sunscreen and butter cookies, just like always. I held him. Not because I was soft, but because none of this was his fault. I looked up at Serena. She had stepped all the way inside without being invited, setting a fabric bag on the floor, a toy box inside some juice, a crumpled t-shirt, and a scribbled note, "He's allergic to peanuts. Don't feed him any." "I have a spa appointment with Melanie," she said, like I was the part-time babysitter. "Shouldn't take more than 3 hours." Easy. I stood still. Didn't touch the bag. Didn't respond. "Luna," she raised an eyebrow. "I'm running late." I knelt down gently, unwrapped Caleb's arms from around me, and looked him in the eye. "Caleb, I have something important I need to do today. I can't watch you right now, but I'll video call you tomorrow." "Okay," his lips pressed tight, eyes shimmering. "Auntie, are you mad at me?" he whispered. I hugged him again tightly. "Never. You've done nothing wrong. I love you so much." I stood and faced Serena. "You brought him here without asking. No permission. No apology for what you've done." "Oh, here we go again," she tossed her hair. "You always play the victim while the whole family bent over backwards for you. Now you can't even watch a kid for a few hours." I looked her straight in the eye. For the first time, no bowing, no softening. No one bent for me. They bent me, then made me thank them for not breaking me. Serena scoffed. "You've really changed. You used to know your place. Now, you're like a stranger." I nodded. "Yes, I've changed. I'm tired. Tired of carrying the weight of family without anyone ever asking if I can still breathe." She went silent for a second, then shifted tactics. "What about Caleb? You really gonna say no to a child?" I didn't flinch. "I'm not saying no to him. I'm saying no to you, the one who uses him to manipulate me." She stepped back, her face flushed. Just then, the door across the hall opened. Mrs. Henderson, my 70-year-old neighbor, stood there, holding a trash bag, her gaze drifting slowly toward us. No words were needed. Her eyes were a quiet nod, a silent witness. Serena caught the look, turned quickly, and yanked Caleb's hand. "Come on, Caleb! Your aunt doesn't need anyone." The boy looked back at me. I placed my hand over my heart. "I'm here. Whenever you need me, you know where to find me." Serena slammed the door like a curtain falling on a stage. But this time I didn't collapse behind it. I didn't reach for chocolate or whiskey. I just stood there quietly in my own small apartment where no one comes in unless I let them. I didn't cry. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel hollow. I just felt right. That afternoon I brewed a pot of peppermint tea, opened Lucille's notebook, and wrote a line at the bottom of the last page they came back. But this time, I didn't open the door. Then I closed the notebook and sat tall, ready for whatever came next. 2 days after Serena dragged Caleb out of my apartment, as if I were a stranger, I walked into the office of Randall and Hoyt Notary Attorneys, tucked at the end of Martin Street between a dried flower shop and a small Italian cafe. Nothing fancy. I didn't need luxury. I needed finality. The man who greeted me was Mr. Hoyt, early 60s, salt and pepper hair, a voice calm and low like an early autumn breeze. He didn't ask much, just looked at me as I placed the thick file onto his dark wooden desk. "I want to terminate all financial ties with my birth family," I said, voice steady. "No lawsuits, no compensation demands. Just a legal, formal, and irreversible end." Mr. Hoyt opened each page. A cost summary of $93,280. Bank statements. A home deed in my mother's name, but paid from my account. Phone bills. Caleb's tuition receipts. I had neatly labeled them under non-reimbursable expenses. "Are you sure?" he asked, eyes filled with measured concern. "I'm no longer the place they crawl back to after failing," I replied. "I can't keep living like I'm borrowing my own breath." We drafted the document together, Declaration of Financial Disassociation, from family, stating that from the date of signing forward, I hold no responsibility, direct or indirect, for any financial obligations tied to my mother, father, or sister. I also requested to add a supplementary clause: all previous support was voluntary, not an obligation. This termination is my legal right and does not constitute abandonment. Mr. Hoyt nodded, then handed me the pen. I signed. No hesitation. That afternoon I went home, opened my laptop, attached a scanned copy of the notarized statement in an email. I sent it to 3 recipients: Janice Walker, Mother Thomas Walker, Father Serena Walker, sister. Subject: confirmation of financial termination, effective immediately. Body: I am no longer responsible for the consequences of anyone else's choices. All details are outlined in the attached document. Please do not contact me. I hit SEND. Then I opened my phone settings. Selected change number. A new string of digits appeared. Unknown to anyone. Unreachable. The next day I received 3 emails. From my mother: "What is this supposed to mean? We're family. Why bring in the law?" From Serena: "You're a traitor. You don't deserve to be Caleb's aunt." From my father, the briefest one: "I'm disappointed in you." I didn't reply. I took screenshots, saved them, then moved all 3 messages into archive, a place with no alerts, no permissions to interrupt my life anymore. That night I brewed a cup of peppermint tea, took out Lucille's journal, and added a note below my last entry: she lived a generation ahead. And me? I'm the one drawing the final line. I closed the notebook and smiled, not a triumphant grin, but the quiet relief of someone who had just laid the first stone in a life no longer owned by anyone else. The next morning I went to work as usual. The library was still quiet, the scent of old paper mingling with weak coffee from the staff lounge. But everything had shifted. I no longer carried a sense of debt. During lunch I tore down an old sticky note on my desk. The ink on buy milk for Caleb had already blurred, and replaced it with a fresh one today: I only have to take care of myself. And that's enough. I sat down, opened the notebook beside my computer, and wrote the first personal goals I'd made in years. Enroll in a weekend creative writing class, register for the library promotion exam, look into community mentoring programs for adult women when the clock struck 5 p.m. I stepped out of the library, not bowing my head, not checking my phone to see who needed what. Just me, the autumn sunset, and the freedom I had just signed into existence. 3 days after I sent the financial cutoff email to my family, I woke up on a cold, rainy morning, opened my laptop, and wrote a post. No photos. No tags. No mention of my parents or Serena. Just a few honest lines drawn from 2 years of silence. I used to think love meant sacrifice. That if I kept giving, someone would eventually notice and be grateful. But no. Silence isn't noble. It's twisted into duty. And when you're tired, they call you selfish. When you say no, they say you've betrayed the family. I'm not writing this to complain. I just want to tell anyone who's going through what I went through, you're not alone. You have the right to stop. I posted it on my personal Facebook at 7:43 a.m. Then I made a cup of ginger tea, turned on some jazz, and planned to continue my day like any other. But less than an hour later, the first notification came in. A friend from the past commented, "Luna, thank you for writing this." I never had the courage to say it, but I felt every word. Then a stranger wrote, "I've never read something that hit my pain like this did." And then another. And another. Shares. Private messages. Comments longer than the original post. By noon, the post had over 2,000 shares. By evening, it had passed 10,000. A woman in Ohio messaged me, "I quit my job 5 years ago to take care of my mom while my brother traveled the world." When I said I was tired, the whole family told me, "Don't be dramatic. Thank you for speaking up for us." A single dad in Florida wrote, "My family cut me off when I adopted my ex-wife's daughter. They say I was shaming our bloodline." Your post made me feel lighter. I sat alone in my living room, the computer screen glowing with waves of responses. Not pity. Connection. For the first time in years, I wasn't a lone voice in a silent family. I was one voice among thousands who had been forced to keep quiet. I didn't cry, but I sat still for a long while. There is pain in being ignored, but there is also peace in finally being seen. That evening, I received an email from Serena. "What exactly are you doing? You want the whole town to see you as some kind of victim. Mom's been crying all day." Happy now, I scrolled past. Didn't reopen. Didn't reply. Then came an email from my mom. "You're destroying this family's image. Everyone sacrifices at some point. Why would you choose to shame us like this?" I calmly took a screenshot, saved it to the folder labeled "No reply." Then I set my phone to airplane mode and continued my night with a novel I'd bought back in January, but hadn't read past page 3. The next morning, an editor from a mental health blog emailed me, "Luna, we happened to read your post. We're working on a series about invisible burdens in families. Would you be open to an anonymous interview?" I typed back. "I don't need to hide my name anymore. Just let me speak in my own voice." By the end of the week, the post had over 12,700 shares. A women's support group for survivors of emotional abuse reposted it with this caption, "Luna's story is the story of millions who lived in assigned roles: the obedient child, the selfless sister, the invisible shadow at the family dinner table." I never expected my story to spread this far. But when one person speaks up, others realize, "Oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not too sensitive. I was just forced to stay silent for too long." And me, I'm no longer afraid of Serena's rage. No longer hurt when I see my mom defend the wrong and call it family loyalty. I no longer feel like I'm betraying anyone. I'm just returning to myself. And if that hurts them, then maybe they need to learn how to heal through the very truth they've been avoiding. One late autumn afternoon, as I was folding clothes under the soft yellow glow from the kitchen window, a new email appeared in my inbox. The subject line was "Simple invitation from Reclaim, a healing community for women after family trauma." I opened it, my eyes scanning each line as my heartbeat slowed. "We've read your writing. What you shared isn't just a personal story, it's a voice for those who haven't found their own yet. We're hosting a gathering this coming Saturday, themes starting over from silence. If you're willing, we'd love to hear your story and, if possible, the story of the women who came before you. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I pulled out the small wooden box from under the bed where I kept Lucille's old journal. That night, I sat and reread every page. Each line she wrote in 1971, 1983, 1991, like whispered truths through time. No one in my family ever mentioned the other side of Grandma, the woman who quietly sewed dresses, baked pies, smiled gently when interrupted, and wrote her truth in the shadows. Now I could bring that voice into the light. On Saturday, I wore a moss green linen dress and a light brown knit cardigan, like the kind Grandma wore in old photos. No lipstick, no makeup, just me, real and present. The gathering took place in a small church converted into a community space in the Fremont area. Red brick walls, stained glass windows, wooden pews, and soft lighting from vintage hanging lamps. I walked in my heart, as quiet as a cat's footsteps. In the front rows sat women of all ages, some with snow-white hair, some in their early 20s, some holding babies. But they all shared one look, the gaze of someone who has survived in silence. I was introduced simply as Luna Walker, librarian, writer, survivor. No accolades. No titles. Just who I am. I stepped up, holding Grandma's journal. Without looking at my notes, I began. I used to think silence was a way to keep peace. But I was wrong. It was what twisted me into someone responsible for everyone else's failures. My voice didn't shake, though the impression from gripping the journal still lingered on my palm from the night before. I spoke about Serena, about my mother, about Caleb, about the slap, about the spreadsheet of $93,000, about the guilt-laden calls I never returned. Then I opened the journal and read a passage from Lucille for the first time, not just in my room, but out loud to the world. They said I was weak for staying quiet. But if I spoke, I'd lose even the roof over my head. So I wrote. So that someday, if a granddaughter of mine is strong enough, she'll know I saw it. I recorded it, and I believe she'll finish what I couldn't. A soft sob echoed from the back. I looked up and saw many eyes brimming red. I'm that granddaughter, I said. And today I'm finishing it for her. As I stepped down, no one clapped because everyone stood walking toward me to offer hugs. No drama. No noise. Just real embraces. That night, when I returned to my little apartment, tired but not drained, I opened the balcony door to breathe in the cold air. And I froze. Among the simple pots of plants, one bright yellow daffodil had bloomed. I didn't remember planting it. Maybe it had sprouted from a bulb I buried last winter, not knowing if I'd survive to see spring. Maybe a seed stuck to my sleeve while cleaning the garden after the first rain of the month. Whatever it was, it chose the right day to bloom. I sat beside the pot, took out my phone, and snapped a photo, not to post, but to save in my gallery titled Things That Came Back When No One Was Looking. I placed Grandma's journal on the table next to the photo of the flower and whispered, I see it now, Grandma. And I'll keep going. Not for them, but for people like you, like me, and the ones still waiting to be seen. Outside on the balcony, the wind brushed past. The daffodil trembled like it was nodding. Luna's story is proof that silence isn't always noble. Sometimes it's the very chain that makes us forget our worth. When she dared to step out of the role imposed on her, Luna didn't just reclaim her own freedom, she also carried forward the voices of women who were forced to endure in silence. In real life, the bravest thing isn't always forgiveness or endurance. Sometimes it's simply saying, I've had enough, and starting to live from that truth. What do you think about Luna's journey? What would you do in a similar situation? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt, powerful stories about family and freedom.